I wasn't supposed to be home that early. Tuesday afternoon, I wrapped up a meeting with a client who abruptly canceled the rest of our sessions for the week. Normally I'd be annoyed. That was a big pitch, a full month of prep. But honestly, I was relieved. I'd been running on fumes and thought maybe I could surprise Kayla. Cook dinner, decompress with her for once. We hadn't had a quiet night together in weeks. Work had gotten in the way, like always. I texted her that I was running late, just to see if she might do something cute or weird, while she thought she had the place to herself. Honestly, I was half hoping I'd catch her dancing around the living room in pajama shorts with a face mask on or something. Instead, I pulled into the driveway and saw a car I didn't recognize. Silver sedan, low profile, nice rims, not cheap but not flashy either. It was parked just inside the gate, not on the curb, like someone who had been here before and felt comfortable pulling in. I just sat there in my car for a second, staring at it. I have a good memory when it comes to cars. That wasn't a neighbor's, not a friend's, not someone from her book club. My mind tried to make excuses, maybe a repair guy, but we weren't expecting one. And Kayla was the type to text me about anything even slightly unusual. Still, I didn't go in angry or paranoid, just curious, maybe a little unsettled. But the moment I opened the front door, I knew something was off. Right by the hallway mat was a pair of shoes. Men's. Black, size 11 or 12. Worn in but polished, expensive-looking soles. I stood there for a full minute staring at them. They weren't mine. And they weren't the kind of shoes you'd wear casually to visit a friend. That's when I noticed the jacket. Draped over the couch. Leather. Definitely not mine. I don't wear leather jackets. I walked closer, almost in a daze, and the scent hit me before I even touched it. Cologne. Sharp, earthy, expensive. Something like bergamot and sandalwood. Definitely not something Kayla and I had ever kept in the house. I ran my fingers along the lapel of the jacket, almost hoping it was hers. Oversized. But no, the cut, the brand tag, even the weight of it screamed that it belonged to another man. My heart started to pound. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was Lena's brother. Maybe she really did have some sort of emergency. Maybe this guy had offered to drive her. But when I walked into the kitchen, those excuses started falling apart. There were 2 glasses on the island. One was half full with her favorite red wine, a bottle we opened last weekend but had barely touched. The second was shorter, a tumbler, and the smell coming off it was definitely whiskey. I leaned down and sniffed it. Scotch, smooth and smoky. I don't even keep whiskey like that in the house. My pulse kept picking up as I looked around. A napkin was crumpled on the table beside her glass. Her wedding ring sat right on top of it. Kayla never takes off that ring. I've seen her shower with it, swim with it, garden with it. She said once that she only planned to take it off when they wheel her into surgery or a coffin. It was a joke, a sweet one. But now it wasn't funny. I picked it up. It was warm, like it had just come off. That's when I heard it, the faint sound of water running upstairs. Shower. The master bath. The door creaked a little as it always did when the bathroom window was open. I didn't move. I just stood there in the middle of the kitchen, staring down at the ring in my hand, my breathing shallow. The house suddenly felt way too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. 100 thoughts fired in my head. I wanted to rush upstairs and catch whoever was in there. I wanted to storm out of the house. I wanted to believe none of this meant what I feared it did. I wanted to rewind time 5 minutes. I didn't move until I heard the water shut off. Moments later, the bathroom door opened, and I heard the unmistakable sound of Kayla's footsteps padding down the hall. When she appeared at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a towel, her hair wet and skin flushed from the heat, she didn't look surprised, not even startled. "Oh," she said, like I just come home 5 minutes early from a dentist appointment. "You're home." "I had a client cancel," I said, my eyes locked on her. "Thought I'd surprise you." She started walking down the stairs, towel tucked in at her chest. Not a hint of panic in her face, just her usual cool composure. Too calm. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from cracking. She looked at the glasses in the kitchen, the ring still in my hand. Oh, she said again casually. Yeah. Lena came by. Lena, I repeated, frowning. Why? She was upset. She and Tyler had a huge fight, apparently. She was crying. You know how she gets. And her brother brought her? She blinked. Yeah. He's visiting from Portland. Dropped her off while he ran an errand. She was a mess. Asked if she could shower to cool off. I poured her a glass of wine, he had some whiskey. Then they both left. I stared at her. Her expression never wavered. Smooth. Practiced. And the ring? I didn't want to get it wet, she said, walking over to me and gently taking it from my hand. You know I take it off before I clean. Must have forgotten to put it back on. Everything in me screamed that this wasn't right. The details were too polished. The story too balanced. One friend, one brother, one excuse for every item out of place. Still, I nodded. Okay. She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek. Her skin was warm. Her scent, familiar but layered with something else. Lavender and a hint of that same cologne from the jacket. My mind was split in two. One half told me I was jumping to conclusions. That this was Kayla, the woman I married, the one who never lied to me. The other half was already stitching together a story that made way too much sense. The shoes, the jacket, the whiskey, the ring, the shower, and her calmness. That scared me more than anything. Kayla turned away and walked toward the laundry room, towel swishing as she disappeared around the corner. Do you want to order takeout or cook tonight? She called out. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at the untouched second glass of wine, feeling something subtle and vital shift in the foundation of my world. I wanted to let it go. I told myself I'd believe her, but deep down, I knew this was the first crack. And if I kept digging, I might not like what I found. After that day, I tried to forget about it. I really did. I told myself Kayla's explanation made sense, or at least enough sense not to push. Lena had been to our place before. I'd met her brother once, briefly, at a gallery opening. The shoes? Maybe his. The jacket? Could have been his too. And the wine and whiskey, okay, weird, but not impossible. The ring? I didn't love that part, but it had a logic to it. But even while I tried to convince myself, something inside me didn't buy it. And once that seed of doubt took root, I started noticing everything. And I mean everything. Started small. Her workouts, for one. Kayla was never a gym person. We'd gone together a handful of times years ago, and she hated it. Said she preferred hiking, yoga, anything that didn't involve machines and bad music. But not long after that afternoon, she suddenly got serious about fitness. Started doing evening runs, but never came back sweaty. Said she was going to a class, spin, then bar, then circuit training, depending on the day. I asked which gym, and she was vague. The one near the library. There's no gym near the library. One night she came home from a run wearing makeup. Another time she had on perfume, not the one I knew. It was heavy, floral, like something meant to linger in a room after you leave. When I asked about it, she laughed and said she sprayed the wrong bottle in the dark. I smiled, nodded, kissed her cheek. But I didn't believe her. Then there was the phone. Kayla used to leave it anywhere, kitchen counter, bathroom, couch cushions. It wasn't a secret-keeping device. But after that day, it became a second limb. She kept it face down, took it to the bathroom, slept with it under her pillow. The screen stopped lighting up with previews. Notifications were turned off and she set a new passcode, something I didn't know. I once asked, half joking, "What's with the Fort Knox routine?" She smiled and said, "Privacy is healthy. Babe, I don't snoop through your stuff, right?" I shrugged. "Sure, but you never used to hide it." Her smile faded for just a second. Then she kissed me and said, "You're imagining things." And for a while I tried to believe that too. But the signs kept coming. Like her clothes. She bought new lingerie, silk, lace, the kind that costs too much and comes in discreet little bags. I found the receipts, not hidden, just folded up in her purse. She'd never worn any of it with me. One night I spotted a new bra tag on the bathroom floor. I hadn't seen that set on her before, and still hadn't days later. Then there was the gym bag. We were getting ready for bed, and she left it by the door. Something about the way it sat, tilted, slightly unzipped, caught my eye. I don't know what made me check. Curiosity? Paranoia? I reached in and felt around. Towel, deodorant, hairbrush, and then high heels. Black stilettos, the kind you don't wear to do deadlifts. They were wrapped in a small drawstring bag. I zipped the bag back up and put it exactly how I found it. Didn't say a word. It was like living in a house with a shifting floor. Everything looked the same. The rooms, the art we picked out together, the same coffee mugs. But the ground underneath was moving, tilting, cracking in slow, quiet lines. She started going on volunteer weekends. Kayla had always been active with nonprofits, so it wasn't that strange, except for the timing. Suddenly she was gone almost every Saturday. Once, she didn't come back until late Sunday. Sorry, she said, pulling off her sunglasses. We ended up helping with setup, tear down, everything. Lost track of time. I nodded. She looked flushed, but not from lifting boxes. Her car was low on gas. She'd filled it up the day before. I checked the odometer. She'd driven over 80 miles that weekend. The place she claimed to be volunteering was 15 minutes away. One afternoon, I had a meeting across town and passed a boutique hotel on the edge of the city. The kind with bungalows and privacy fences and fake names on the receipt. In the back lot, I saw her car. Parked. Unlocked. I didn't go inside. I just sat in my own car for 5 minutes, staring at it. Like maybe I could will the truth to change just by looking hard enough. When she came home that night, I asked how the event went. "Oh, exhausting," she said, kicking off her shoes. "We were sorting supplies all day. MHM. That night she fell asleep quickly, snoring softly next to me like everything was fine. And I just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, realizing I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone who monitored patterns and watched shadows. A man who waited for lies to fall out of his wife's mouth, then quietly filed them away for comparison later. I wanted to be wrong. God, I wanted that. I wanted to wake up and find out I'd been paranoid. That I'd been working too hard and seeing ghosts. That Kayla was just in a weird season, and everything I thought I saw was just misread signals. But every day, another brick got laid in the wall between us. One detail here, one off moment there, one lie layered gently on top of another. Then came the office calls. She'd started taking them late at night, in the guest room, door cracked just enough that I could hear murmurs but not words. She said it was a new project with a West Coast client. She didn't want to keep me awake, she said. Sometimes she came back smelling like fresh air, not like someone who'd been on Zoom. Once, I saw her slide her purse under the guest bed. I peeked later. Inside was a change of clothes, lipstick, a charger, a half-used perfume roller I didn't recognize. I stood there, just staring at it. I didn't touch anything. I didn't confront her, because by that point I already knew. The question wasn't if anymore. It was how far, how long, and with who, and whether I was ready to face it. I remember every detail about that evening, down to the sound of her heels on the hallway tiles. It was a week before Christmas. Cold, crisp air outside, string lights everywhere, and just enough snow dusting the edges of the lawn to make the whole street feel picture-perfect. Kayla was humming when she got ready. That stood out. She hadn't hummed in weeks. She told me her office was doing a modest little end-of-year gathering. Her words exactly. Said they were just going to have drinks and maybe do a Secret Santa exchange. Nothing fancy. Don't wait up, she'd added, pulling on earrings I hadn't seen in a year. She came down the stairs like she was walking into a red carpet event. I don't even know how to describe the dress. Gold, backless, tight like it was made for her skin and no one else's. She wore it with confidence like it wasn't a big deal, like she always went to company events dressed like that. And then there was the makeup. Not her daily light foundation. This was full glam. Smoky eyes, contoured cheekbones, deep red lips. The kind of look she used to save for anniversaries. And asterisk mate nights. Nights that used to be for us. You look. I trailed off, not even knowing how to finish the sentence. Stunning? Alarming? Suspicious? She smiled soft, calculated. Don't start with your protective husband routine. I raised both hands. Didn't say anything. You were going to, she said, slipping on her coat. Don't worry. It's just a party. Just a party. She left around 6:45 p.m. I waited until 7:15 before I opened the hiking app we use sometimes on road trips. It was still linked to her phone. She'd forgotten to remove the sync when we stopped using it months ago. It wasn't the cleanest tracker. A few-minute delay here and there, but reliable enough. I expected to see her heading downtown, but she wasn't anywhere near the office building. She was pinned 25 miles outside the city, right near a small cluster of private homes, the kind that came up on luxury rental apps for romantic getaways. I zoomed in on the map, blinked, and then zoomed in again. She was stationary. Inside one of them, I sat back on the couch. Not angry, not shocked, just quiet, like a part of me had been holding my breath for months, and now it finally exhaled. I grabbed my coat, keys, and phone. Didn't even bother with gloves. The drive was long, cold, and silent. I didn't play music. I didn't call anyone. I didn't rehearse a speech. I just drove. As I pulled into the neighborhood, I turned off my headlights and coasted to the side of the road. The area was quiet, upscale, decorated like something out of a holiday catalog. Lights on every roofline, candles glowing through windows. I spotted her car immediately, parked neatly in a driveway outside a well-lit rental home. The kind of place people booked for anniversaries, proposals, affairs. I stayed in my car for a few minutes, my hands on the steering wheel, watching my breath fog up the window. Then I got out, walked slowly down the street like I belonged there. There was music playing from inside the house. Jazz. I could hear laughter. From the front, I couldn't see much. The drapes were drawn. But around the back, there was a large bay window looking into the main room. No fence, no camera, just open. That's where I saw her. Kayla was standing in front of the fireplace, her back to me, holding a glass of wine. She was laughing, a real unguarded laugh. And then she turned just enough that I saw her face, glowing, relaxed, beautiful in a way I hadn't seen her be around me in months. And then he walked into frame. Mark. I remembered him instantly. We'd met once. He worked in her office marketing side. Shook my hand at a networking thing. Told me I was lucky. He walked up behind her and placed his hands on her waist like it was second nature. She leaned back into him, smiled up at him like he was home, then turned, ran a hand along his chest, and kissed him. Slowly, comfortably, like this was their house, like they'd done it 100 times before. I didn't flinch, didn't knock on the window, didn't bang on the door. I just stood there watching, invisible. On the bar counter near them, I saw her purse, half open. Her hand reached into it briefly, and I saw it in the light, her wedding ring. Not in a panic, not hidden, just placed there like an afterthought, like she took it off without emotion. She said she only took it off for cleaning. She'd taken it off for him. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, maybe less. Time was weird in that moment, elastic. Everything slowed down but burned into my mind like it had been etched there. When I turned and walked away, my legs felt distant, detached. I got back in my car, didn't slam the door, didn't scream. I just sat there in silence, staring at my own hands. I didn't drive home right away. I parked at a gas station a few miles away, sat in the lot under those ugly fluorescent lights, and stared at my phone. I could have called someone. I didn't. Could have sent her a message. I didn't. Instead, I opened the tracker again and watched her dot. Still there. Still inside that house. Moving from room to room. Eventually stationary again, likely the bedroom. It was the only time in my life I ever wished I hadn't been right. Back home, the house was dark and quiet. Still smelled like her perfume from earlier. The wine glass she left in the sink still had a lipstick stain. I walked into the bedroom, pulled the covers back on my side, and sat down. I didn't cry, didn't rage. I just stared at the closet, her closet, and thought about how someone could love you and still do this. How someone could walk out in a gold dress, kiss your cheek, and step into someone else's arms like it was just another appointment. I checked the time. She'd probably be back around midnight, I figured. I wasn't going to wait up. I wasn't going to ask questions anymore. The answer had already looked me straight in the face, smiling. I didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I lay on the guest room bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling like it might spell out what to do next. Upstairs, Kayla's movements were soft but unmistakable. Closet door, sink running, toilet flush, then silence. She probably thought I had fallen asleep early. Or maybe she didn't care where I was. Or maybe, and this was the one that made my stomach turn, she thought she had gotten away with it. But she hadn't. And now I needed proof. Not for drama. Not for revenge. I didn't want to scream or break things or turn this into some scene. That wasn't me. And it wasn't how I wanted this to end. I wanted it quiet, clean, undeniable. So around 1 a.m., I got out of bed and started with the obvious, the house. We'd installed a smart lock system last year. Kayla was the one who insisted. For convenience, she said, we can track everything. I opened the admin panel on my laptop and logged in using my main credentials. She never asked to share them. The logs were clean, but only on the surface. When I filtered by manual key entry, something jumped out. Tuesdays, Thursdays, some Saturdays. On nights she said she was at the gym or volunteering. The door hadn't been unlocked by her phone or code. It had been opened with a physical key. That wouldn't matter, except Kayla never used her key anymore. She loved the code. No more digging around in my purse, she used to joke. So either she suddenly went back to old habits or someone else had a copy. I pulled up our camera logs next. We'd installed them mostly for packages and when we traveled. The footage autosaved to cloud storage for 30 days. I queued up the Thursdays. There, plain as day. Mark, the same man from the lake house. At 2:17 p.m. 2 weeks ago, he walked up our front steps. No knock, no hesitation. Used a key. Walked in. At 4:51 p.m. He left. Alone. For days later, he came again. This time wearing a baseball cap low over his face. Same entry. Same quiet departure. Like he lived here. I watched each clip twice. My pulse didn't spike. My chest didn't tighten. I just took notes. Next came her devices. Kayla used to sync everything phone, tablet, laptop to the same iCloud. Months ago, she said she was simplifying and changed her login. But she forgot one thing. The old iPad in our living room drawer. It hadn't been used in a while, but when I turned it on, it was still connected under her name. And still syncing. Messages, notes, even some photos. I tapped into iMessage first. It didn't show everything. Just scraps. Texts that hadn't fully synced or had been deleted but caught mid-backup. But the names were there. _work was the contact name. Obvious. Lazy. The messages weren't graphic. Not really. But they didn't need to be. Same time Thursday? Still thinking about last weekend. Don't forget the necklace. I left it in your car. And then, he doesn't suspect anything. Promise. I **Ted every message. Then checked her notes app. One note stood out. Titled only, Details. It read like an itinerary. Thursday 2 p.m. Don't forget to move car. Wine in fridge, decant early. Spare key in planter. Ring in pouch. My hands tightened around the tablet. Not from rage. From awe almost. She planned her lies like a work meeting. Like a logistics checklist. I sent everything to myself. Then I dug deeper. Her email was logged out. But the browser had cached an old password. I tried it, her old dog's name and a birthday. It worked. Inbox. For 1,000 emails. I didn't need most of them. I searched. Mark. Emails going back nearly 7 months. First were work-related. Then flirty. Then fully personal. I opened one from October. The subject. The cabin. Inside, a receipt. Paid in full for a 3-night stay at a rental under her name. But it wasn't the lake house I saw her in. It was a different property. So this had been going on even longer than I thought. Another email, design samples, was a PDF chain. At first I thought it was work-related, until I realized what I was looking at. She'd submitted logo mock-ups, my branding studio's logo, but she wasn't pitching them to a client. She was redesigning it entirely. The initials were hers and Mark's. K+M Creative. Like a business, or a fantasy, or a life. I kept digging. Delivery receipts, DoorDash, Instacart, all billed to her card, but delivered to an address outside the city, the same one from the cabin email. Multiple orders. Wines she liked, foods he liked, based on old conversations I'd overheard. I copied every receipt. Then came the final piece. An image from the cloud. A selfie. The angle was high casual. She was in bed, head on someone's chest. Only part of his jaw was visible. But it was him. I knew that stubble, that necklace, that mole. She had titled it, Safe Here. I sat back in my chair. Let it all wash over me. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. Felt more like standing in the middle of a storm after the wind stopped. Just broken branches and silence. By morning, I had everything in a folder. Printed and digital. Camera screensh *TS. Smart lock logs. Delivery histories. Photos. Emails. Synced messages. Even a timeline. And I realized there wasn't going to be a confrontation. Not yet. This wasn't about yelling or pain or begging for explanations. It was about building a record. For myself. For the lawyer. For the day I'd eventually say, this is what you did. When Kayla came downstairs around 8 a.m., I was in the kitchen sipping coffee. Calm. Collected. Morning, she said, yawning, hair still damp from a shower. Morning, I replied, nodding. She kissed my cheek. I let her. I might work from a cafe today, she added. Place near the lake has a nice back patio. I looked up and smiled. Sounds peaceful. She smiled back, completely unaware. And just like that, the game was over. She didn't know it yet, but I did. It was strange how quiet my anger had become. A month ago, if I'd imagined discovering what I now knew, I would have pictured myself wrecked, shouting, sobbing, demanding answers. But reality was colder, sharper, cleaner. Kayla was still lying, still coming home with lazy explanations, still putting her phone face down on the counter like it wasn't hiding a second life, still kissing my cheek before she disappeared for another networking event. But now it didn't bother me the way it used to, because I knew something she didn't, and that knowledge was power. I started gathering paperwork. Not just evidence of her infidelity, I already had more than enough of that, but documents she hadn't looked at in over a year. Legal filings, company ownership logs, property registration. And as I pulled it all together, the pieces clicked into place like a safe unlocking. A year before any of this started, I had made a decision Kayla hadn't cared much about. At the time, it had nothing to do with her. I run a branding studio, small team, lean overhead, consistent work. But I'd gotten burned in a prior business partnership, so when I launched my own thing, I had an attorney set up a holding trust. It was simple. The company's name, assets, and future property purchases would be placed under the trust, not in my own name. I remained the sole beneficiary. Everything was filtered through a management entity that protected me from liability, creditors, and potential partnership disputes. Kayla wasn't listed. By her choice, actually. When we bought the house 6 months later, I structured it the same way. The deed was held under the trust for business use. Since I worked from home, that wasn't hard to justify. We even got tax benefits. Kayla signed off on everything at closing, barely skimming the papers. She was focused on picking tiles and fixtures. Why is it under the company? She asked once. Just makes taxes easier, I'd said, and she nodded. That was the end of it. But now that legal firewall was the thin line between collapse and control. The house wasn't marital property. It was an owned asset of a corporate entity. She hadn't contributed to the down payment. Her name wasn't on the loan. And because the business trust had existed prior to the marriage's current structure, The house didn't count as jointly acquired under state law. Not unless she could prove some form of co-ownership or financial stake. Which she couldn't. She'd never invested in the business. Never been on payroll. She'd done some design work early on, part-time, mostly Pinterest mood boards and font suggestions, but I had classified her as an independent contractor. I dug up the contract she signed back then. Title: Design Consultant. Compensation: per project. No equity. No profit share. Duration: 3 months. Ended March 4th. She'd signed it herself in purple ink while eating cereal. She never asked what it meant. I stored the contract in the file with everything else. The camera footage. The tracking logs. The synced messages. It was all part of the same architecture now. A structure that outlined not just her betrayal, but how thoroughly she'd misunderstood her position. She thought this was our house. Our life. Our business. It wasn't. It was mine. And the irony was, she'd handed it to me willingly. The next morning, I met with my attorney. A different one than the guy who helped set up the trust. This one specialized in high-asset divorces. I found him through a friend. A quiet referral from someone who'd survived a similar situation. We met at his office downtown. Quiet building, discreet signage. His name was Alan. He was in his mid-50s, clean-cut, serious eyes. The kind of guy who didn't say anything unless it mattered. I handed him the folder. He opened it, flipped through each section methodically. Didn't speak for a full 10 minutes. Just scanned, studied, nodded occasionally. When he finally closed the folder, he looked at me and said, "You did your homework." I nodded. "I need this clean." "It will be," he said. We talked through timelines, state laws, asset categorization, adultery implications. He asked me if I wanted to pursue spousal misconduct claims. I said no. I didn't want a war. I wanted closure. But I wanted it on my terms. When I left his office, the sky was overcast and heavy. Snow threatened the air, but hadn't fallen yet. The streets felt calm. Like everything around me had settled into the same quiet I carried inside. Kayla texted me an hour later. Grabbing dinner with Lana. Might stay at her place. Love you. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. That night, I pulled up a blank document and started writing everything down. Not for legal purposes, not for strategy. Just to clear my head. A record. A story. The slow timeline of how something once beautiful had unraveled so methodically. I wrote about the jacket, the wine, the ring, about the way she smiled when she lied, about the way she leaned into him like it was nothing. And then I deleted it. Didn't need to read it again. This wasn't about mourning anymore. It was about moving. 2 days later, I made a quiet change to our shared account access. Nothing illegal. Nothing she could claim was hostile. Just a standard rights adjustment. She could still view joint finances, credit card history, basic balances, but she couldn't move large funds. Couldn't transfer assets. Couldn't make changes to the trust. She didn't even notice. Or maybe she did and didn't know what it meant. Then I checked the office signage. Outside our home studio, we had a small plaque with both our names. Landon and Kayla Brand Studio. She had insisted on it when we first moved in. Said it made her feel proud. Like she was part of it. I ordered a new one. Just my name. Simple. Clean. Real. The old one came off with 2 screws. I left it in a drawer in the garage. Didn't feel the need to smash it. That would have been too dramatic. Too theatrical. Not my style. A week passed. Kayla didn't notice. She was too busy. At least 3 nights that week, she came home late. Another client dinner. Another strategy meeting. Once she even said she joined a networking group for female creatives. Each time her tone was light, carefree, like she was winning. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Because the truth wasn't just that she cheated. It was that she'd bet everything on the idea that I'd be blind, passive, forgiving. She assumed the life we built was shared equally, emotionally, financially, legally. But she never asked where the lines were. Never read the fine print. Never looked at the documents she signed when things were good. And now she wouldn't be able to unsign them. When I finally told Alan to move forward with filing, he didn't flinch. "Your case is airtight," he said. "She won't see it coming." I nodded, not out of satisfaction, but out of relief. Because when someone shows you exactly who they are, not with words, but with choices, you eventually stop hoping for change. And you start building your exit, brick by brick, step by step, in silence. When the papers were served, Kayla looked stunned. Not devastated, just exposed. Her first reaction wasn't why. It was, what does this mean for the house? That told me everything. Her lawyer tried pushing for asset division, but Alan shut it down fast. The trust, the contracts, the lack of co-ownership, all airtight. She'd signed every paper, never asked questions. The judge reviewed the documents, glanced at the evidence, and moved swiftly. No drawn-out hearings. No dramatic court scenes. The divorce was finalized in weeks. She left with her personal items and very little else. Quiet exit. No fight. Just faded footsteps. Weeks after the papers were signed, Kayla asked to meet one last time. She brought old design layouts we'd made together, like fragments of a version of us she still wanted to exist. But I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't mourning the marriage. She was mourning the image of it. When she left the office that day, she paused at the new sign bearing only my name. Her reflection stared back, hollow and alone. No words, just silence. I didn't watch her walk away. I just turned back to work, to my life now finally real, finally mine.